Buonasera a tutti, good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo, grazie per essere anche oggi, mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio in Italia e la cultura italiana. Today, I am very, very excited to actually have a double interview. We have two wonderful guests joining us. The author Maria Rosa Cutrufelli joining us from Italy, and the professor Robin-Pickering-Iazzi, who is the professor of Italian Comparative Literature at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. The mission that has brought them together is a beautiful book that Maria Rosa wrote in the 90s, Teen a Mafia Soldier, that thanks to Robin, we can all enjoy in the English language. So the conversation will span not only about the book, but what was the situation of Sicily a few decades ago, and the role of these young women in what we call the underworld, in the world of mafia, and how the gender, we will study also the role that she plays in also a type of world that was mainly a male-dominated world. But before bringing our guests to the program, a little pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org. Un caffè, per favore. My first cup of coffee sets the tone for my entire day, and I get my coffee at La Prima Espresso. La Prima has been brewing Pittsburgh's best coffee for nearly 35 years. Try any of their in-house roasted varieties of beans from all over the world at home, or come and enjoy an espresso or a cappuccino at any of their locations, where their friendly baristas and familiar faces will make you feel at home. Because a trip to La Prima is like a trip to Italy, only closer to home. Well, benvenute Maria Rosa, benvenuta Robin. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you.
So during this interview, I will introduce Maria Rosa Cutrufelli. Maria Rosa prefers to be interviewed in Italian, so I will do my best to interpret her thoughts and words in English for all of you. But a little bit about Maria Rosa Cutrufelli. She was born in Messina in Sicily and raised shuttling back and forth between Sicily and Bologna, and now she resides in Rome. She is a major figure in Italian feminist movements. She boasts a long profile, prolific career as a journalist, cultural critic, and novelist. After earning her degree in literature from the University of Bologna, she founded and directed the journal Tutte Storie. She also authored several works of travel literature, largely devoted to Africa, where she lived for 3 years, and her works have been translated into 20 languages. Robin-Pickering-Iazzi is professor of Italian Comparative Literature at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Among her published works in translation are the novel Suspicion by Laura Grimaldi, Unspeakable Women, selected short stories written by Italian women during fascism, and the widely acclaimed Mafia and Outlaw Stories from Italian Life and Literature. And welcome both to the program again. Maria Rosa, iniziamo con te. Let's start with a little conversation with Maria Rosa. I was lucky enough to hear about your beautiful work and book by Edwige Giunta as we were interviewing her for the her publication, her essays, Talking to the Girls. Can I ask you to share with the audience how the two of you met? Because I think that's also pretty interesting. Maria Rosa, se non ti dispiace, se ci puoi raccontare un pochino come tu e la professoressa Luigi Gela vi siete conosciute, perché è grazie a lei che ho scoperto il tuo lavoro e credo che sia anche una storia abbastanza interessante.
Sì, perché io allora nei primi anni 70 abitavo a Bologna, ma a un certo punto ho deciso di tornare in Sicilia perché l'avevo lasciata da piccola e quindi volevo capire cos'era diventata la Sicilia. Andai a Gela e lì viveva Edi Giunta.
Okay, so so we're talking about probably the first the beginning of the years of the 70s, where Maria Rosa at that point was living in Bologna. She decided to return to Sicily, her homeland that she had left when she was just a little girl. She wanted to see what Sicily had become at that point, and she went to Gela, where Edwige was living at that time.
A Gela, insieme ad altre ragazze, perché eravamo molto giovani, fondai il primo collettivo femminista siciliano e questa cosa Edwige, Edi per noi, era molto più giovane e però ci guardava incuriosita. E da questo sguardo curioso è poi nato nel tempo, molti anni dopo, però, un'amicizia profonda e una stima profonda.
Allora, so in Gela, Maria Rosa, along with other girls, and again, they were pretty young at that time. They created kind of the first collective group of Sicilian feminine women's feminist group, and Eddie, who was Edwige, who was even younger, was looking at them with some sort of curiosity, so to speak, to see what this group would eventually bring. And over the years, actually many years later, these led to the development of a great friendship and also a great esteem. I would say probably mutual esteem from both sides. Benissimo. So just to frame a little bit where the book takes place, okay? Let's talk about, before we get to the character, what is the Sicily that the character lives in? Prima di parlare proprio della storia stessa del personaggio, possiamo inquadrare un pochino la Sicilia che è descritta nel libro di quegli anni?
Sì, in quegli anni in Sicilia naturalmente la cultura mafiosa era radicata, molto radicata, ma anche negata, cioè era come un qualcosa che si muoveva nell'ombra. E però c'erano scoppiarono delle cose nuove, cioè ci furono gruppi di ragazzi, fra cui anche alcune ragazze, che si fecero guerra fra di loro, erano come bande rivali, ma bande che fiancheggiavano la mafia. Ed era la prima volta che succedeva che delle ragazze, delle giovanissime donne, prendevano parte a questa guerra di mafia.
So the Sicily that is talked about in the book was a Sicily that still had a strong mafia culture, so to speak, and well established. But at the same time, it was as well established as kind of denied in a way that the mafia operated in the dark, in the shadow. But other things that were happening at the same time is that the creation of new groups, so to speak, of younger people that like gangs, so to speak, that would fight one another. But inside these groups, we started to see something new for the first time, actually female figures. And that's kind of the uniqueness of what was happening. So quindi so what these roles, these female roles were much talked about, or in the history of much later, when a lot of news came out of mafia bosses, we do have some important female names. So queste figure femminili durante quel tempo venivano riconosciute, perché sappiamo che appunto quando ci sono stati poi i maxi processi sono venuti fuori nomi di mafiosi, ma sono venuti anche nomi di persone al femminile, di personaggi femminili molto forti all'interno di questo mondo.
Sì, le donne hanno sempre avuto un ruolo importante nel mondo mafioso, però attualmente, ad esempio, sono le vere manager, hanno ruoli manageriali all'interno del mondo mafioso. Quello che le donne non hanno fatto solo di rado, solo raramente, è quello di avere un ruolo esecutivo, di diventare soldati di mafia, anche perché le donne, pur partecipando ed essendo anche a volte potenti nel mondo mafioso, però non ricevono, non vengono, come si dice in gergo mafioso, punte, cioè non hanno il rito di iniziazione. Non diventano organiche, nel senso che non vengono iniziate. Ora non vorrei fare un paragone blasfemo, però è un po' come per la Chiesa, cioè le donne nella Chiesa hanno un ruolo a volte anche importante, ma non possono diventare nella Chiesa cattolica sacerdotesse, non possono dare i sacramenti. In qualche modo, diciamo, è un paragone blasfemo, mi rendo conto, però è un poco così. Cioè, le donne nella mafia hanno ruoli importanti, però non sono in organico, dentro l'organico. O perlomeno non erano.
So the role of the women within the mafia structure has always been very important. And they were the true managers, so to speak, that had these managerial responsibilities. And so they had more of this executive role. But what it was denied to them, or at least we don't hear, we don't see, is that they were kind of the soldiers that figure within the mafia setup. They didn't get initiated, and as Maria Rosa said in the Jurgen punte, there was not that initiation ritual. And Maria Rosa doesn't want to be blasphemous by creating this comparison. But if we look at the church, pretty much we have women obviously covering important roles, but nuns cannot become, they cannot give the sacraments, they cannot fulfill all the duties that are usually assigned to the male counterpart. So again, just to reinstate that women were very active, very important, but they just didn't have this facet, this component to their responsibilities. And it's interesting because, you know, when also the big mafia bosses also got caught, on the other hand, they were always cleaning the wives and the mothers and saying that they never knew of anything. È una cosa interessante perché poi quando i vari boss mafiosi venivano catturati, loro in qualche maniera però coprivano, perché dicevano sempre che le madri, le mogli non sapevano mai, non facevano parte, appunto, non sapevano la verità di quello che accadeva nel loro mondo. Possiamo un attimo addentrarci nella storia, diciamo, del libro, nel personaggio, if we can dive in a little bit into the book and the actual character that is portrayed in the book.
Beh, il personaggio, io mi sono ispirata a una storia vera e che mi ha colpito appunto perché era la prima volta che compariva almeno sui giornali una figura del genere, cioè una ragazzina che comandava una gang di ragazzini mafiosi e che a un certo punto a Gela fecero una strage all'interno di un bar, cioè scontrandosi con una gang di ragazzini di un'altra di una gang rivale. Era una battaglia che rientrava in una lotta all'interno della mafia e questa ragazzina aveva un ruolo insolito, quello appunto anche lei sparava, lei combatteva, cosa che appunto le donne di solito nel mondo mafioso non fanno altre cose come gestire i soldi, riciclarli, gestire anche i gregari, ma da un punto di vista organizzativo, non sparando. Invece questa ragazzina giovanissima aveva questo ruolo insolito.
So the book was actually inspired by a true story that Maria Rosa had read and really stayed with her because it was the first time that in the newspapers that we're talking about a female role, an active female role in an incident that occurred. It was actually a young girl who was the boss of a gang. And in Gela, there was actually a shooting at the inside a coffee shop, what we call bar in Italian, and there was one gang, one group against the other. So it was indeed some sort of fight within the mafia itself. And so we see a girl that shoots, a girl that has this unusual role that fights physically. And it was something that was unheard of. Again, we talked about women have some sort of managerial role, maybe handling the money or the recycling of the money. So these, again, the novelty, so to speak. Prego. Mm-hmm.
No, dicevo, mi venne la curiosità proprio di capire che cosa l'aveva spinta verso questo ruolo violento, di violenza, che cosa le era accaduto perché esprimesse così la sua voglia di dominio in questa maniera anche appunto violenta e cruenta, e quindi mi era venuta voglia appunto di esplorare la sua psicologia oltre che la sua vita.
This triggered additional curiosity, so to speak, or to go further on behalf of Maria Rosa to understand what had happened in Tina's life to push her push her towards actually a violent role within this group. But what had happened in her life? Why is she expressing such a strong will of dominating through violence and cruelty? And so Maria Rosa wanted to explore not only her life, but also her psyche. So what else can you tell us without sharing too much? No, you can share as much as you like, because it's actually very interesting in the analysis of, you create, this kaleidoscopic image of Tina, because she is the mafia soldier, but you show her through multiple lenses, the lenses of the family, the lens of the law, the mafiosi, the man, your own discoveries. What are some of the other, again, some of the dimensions you can share with us about Tina?
Quello che va bene, io ho capito intanto che lei era abituata a vivere dentro la violenza, e questo, come dire, l'ha portata a rispondere altrettanto violentemente. Però questo non bastava a spiegare la sua scelta. Quello che io ho capito, perché poi ho parlato anche con questa ragazzina quando lei era in galera, e lei acconsentì a parlare con me, quello che io ho capito è che era come animata da in fondo la stessa voglia di emancipazione che avevo io, solo che era il lato, cioè io volevo un'emancipazione bianca, diciamo così. Lei non poteva raggiungere che un'emancipazione nera, cioè eravamo come le due facce. Era come guardarsi un po' allo specchio e vedere la faccia contraria, no? La faccia opposta di me stessa e delle donne come me, della mia generazione, che aspiravano a essere emancipate, a essere libere. Lei ugualmente aveva questo desiderio, ma la via che poteva percorrere era soltanto quella, era una via nera, una via di violenza.
What Maria Rosa had come to understand is that the character of this young woman was used to live inside violence, inside a violent world. So that was her way to respond, her way of being able to, that was her way, her modus operandi, so to speak. Maria Rosa actually talked to the girl who had agreed to meet with her while she was in jail. And Maria Rosa had come to the conclusion that eventually this young woman was seeking in a different way, kind of the opposite way, but still was seeking the same type of emancipation that Maria Rosa was seeking. One was kind of the white emancipation, kind of in the legal world, and the other one, the black emancipation, like in the crime, so to speak, in the underworld. And so it was almost like the two sides of the same coin, or looking yourself in, as if Maria Rosa was looking at herself in the mirror and seeing the image of this girl. So it's kind of trying to get to the same goal, emancipation, just through different life experiences. I'm curious to ask you about your meeting with her while she was in jail. And also, was it easy to get her to agree to a meeting, or is it something that you had to pursue over a period of time? Quindi il tuo incontro, se possiamo parlarne un attimo, è stato facile che lei acconsentisse a un incontro o è stato anche quello, diciamo, un percorso abbastanza lungo?
No, quello è stato molto facile, anche perché contrariamente ai mafiosi adulti, ai vecchi, diciamo, ai vecchi mafiosi, i giovani mafiosi amano esibirsi, sono cresciuti anche loro con la TV, no? Con il Padrino, e quindi amano esibirsi. Questo è vero non soltanto per la mafia, ma nelle organizzazioni criminali, i narcotrafficanti. C'è una differenza fra i vecchi e i giovani. I vecchi, per loro il silenzio è d'obbligo. Ai giovani il silenzio va stretto, perché appunto vivono in una società in cui l'apparire è fondamentale. E quindi lei mi ha dato subito. Io sono andata lì dove era, nella prigione in cui era rinchiusa, ho chiesto il colloquio e qualche minuto dopo lei me l'ha dato. E devo dire, il nostro rapporto si è interrotto soltanto quando io le ho fatto una domanda che credevo banale e invece poi ho capito che era una domanda che a lei suonava ambigua, che suonava come una trappola. E allora a quel punto le ho detto adesso basta. Però prima di allora abbiamo parlato e lei, come dire, non ha esitato a dirmi di sì.
Possiamo chiederti qual è stata la domanda fatidica e poi traduco?
Sì, la domanda fatidica è stata una domanda che io credevo sociologica. Cioè, sei mai uscita dalla Sicilia? Sembra una domanda normale, no? Non lo era affatto, perché questo significava, cioè perché ho capito dopo che loro facevano incursioni fuori dalla Sicilia, andavano anche a Milano a fare, come dire, azioni di mafia e tornavano indietro. Quindi lei evidentemente ha pensato che io le tendessi una trappola, ma io non ci pensavo proprio. Perché non avendo la sua mentalità, i suoi problemi, mi pareva una normale domanda sociologica. Volevo sapere se quella ragazza si era mai allontanata dal suo paese.
I asked the question, the original question was it easy to get a meeting with the girl while she was in jail? And Maria Rosa has made a clear distinction between kind of the old-fashioned or the old mafiosi bosses and the new generation, where for the older generation, its silence was mandatory. It was all about being silenced. Whereas the newer generation, the young that have lived in the era of technology and TV and The Godfather and so forth, it is all about the opposite, all about appearance, making news, and kind of that ego boost, so to speak, of being seen, being heard. So when Maria Rosa went to the actual jail and requested the meeting, it was within minutes that she received a yes. And they had and it was easy to talk. So until Maria Rosa asked the question that, in her opinion, was just a generic question. but it was interpreted in an ambiguous way, almost like a trap by her interlocutrice from the girl, and who at that point said, enough, this is enough. So my second question was, what was that question that triggered such a reaction? It was just a sociological question. Have you ever left Sicily? That to Maria Rosa seemed to be a pretty ordinary question to ask, but unfortunately it was misinterpreted, because it looks like the girls' gang operated also in Milan, so outside Sicily, and so maybe she interpreted that question as maybe being a trap. So that was very interesting. We will, I just have, let me see, one question. I want to get also Robin in the conversation, who has been patiently.
No, it's interesting. It's very interesting. So, yeah.
Let me see, I'm trying to, you are now in Rome, Maria Rosa. And how much time did you spend in Sicily before transitioning up to Bologna and Roma? And it might sound silly, but you know why. Do you still smell the scent of oregano? Allora, so la domanda è: quanto tempo hai passato in Sicilia prima di trasferirti al nord, e senti ancora l'odore dell'origano?
Quello non solo lo sento sempre, ma vado in tutti i mercatini di Roma per comprarlo, per comprare l'origano, perché senza origano non posso vivere. Pane, olio, origano è la Sicilia, insomma, almeno la mia Sicilia. No, io dopo Bologna sono stata... ho viaggiato parecchio, sono stata anche in altri continenti, però e poi quando sono tornata ho scelto di vivere a Roma, però in Sicilia ci torno sempre. In Sicilia, come dire, è una meta che in qualche modo per me è inevitabile, perché ho bisogno di sentire quel dialetto, ho bisogno di sentire quell'atmosfera, anche se poi dopo quando mi allontano non mi dispiace andar via, però non posso andar via per sempre, ecco.
Okay. I think I can relate to that with Rome. So the question about, do you still smell the scent of oregano? And for those of you who will complete the reading, will know where the question is. And so Maria Rosa says that she goes to any little markets in Rome, trying to find oregano, bread, oregano, and olive oil. This is Sicily in a nutshell, pretty much. So Maria Rosa has lived in Bologna. She's very well traveled. She has traveled also to other continents. And then eventually, when it was time to return to Italy, she settled in Rome. She goes back to Sicily on a regular basis. It is indeed a destination that she cannot not go to. She has the profound need to hear the dialect, to live in the atmosphere, the Sicilian life. But also it is a place that, she can also leave the place. And it's a little bit what happens, I would say, for me, that Rome is part of my identity. My family is there. So it is indeed like a magnet that draws me to come back on a regular basis. But then also we have our lives elsewhere, or different type of lives that have developed on the side. Maria Rosa, un attimo, adesso faremo qualche domanda a Robin per poi riportarvi entrambe insieme. Robin, it is so great to meet you. So you are connecting from Milwaukee, is that correct?
Yeah, yes.
Tell us a little bit about your program at the University of Wisconsin. Give us a little bit of a background about yourself.
Well, I teach courses in Italian language as well as cultural studies, and am specialized and am known as a researcher in the Italian mafias, using the plural, and the Italian anti-mafias. So many of the courses that I've developed for the university are interdisciplinary, and they appeal to students in a variety of majors, in which we look at the 4 major mafias in Italy, and we look at them through first-person testimonies given by pentiti, for example, mafiosi. We read them by also women who have turned into witnesses for the state. We read literary texts, which is one of the reasons why I can finally do Tina Mafia Soldier, but film, both documentary film as well as fiction film. Gomorrah, for example, some of the new films that have come out recently. When I introduced the course in the 1990s, early 1990s, we had over 200 people who wanted into that course. And therefore, you know, we created 4 sections, because what do you do with 200 people? You can't discuss in a meaningful way the text. So it really boomed. And only recently we went back down to 1 section that I teach, and I keep updating the course. It's a regular offering, but depending upon new research that I do, research that colleagues do in Italy, you know, I keep updating with new texts and things. And so in about a week, my students are going to be reading Tina Mafia Soldier.
Oh, wonderful.
It'll be fabulous. Really.
So have you noticed a change in the motivation and the makeup of the students taking this class over the course of years?
No, in the sense that they've always come from, some of them are from the business school, some of them are in criminology, social justice, social welfare, our own Italian majors, obviously, but also comparative literature, the humanities, women's studies, because I dedicate at least half of the texts, the films, readings, to women in the mafia, going back to the 1800s and coming forward. So it's, and I liked very much what Maria Rosa was saying about the managerial roles. This was in the news even a few weeks ago with the arrest of Matteo Messina Denaro, because obviously the sister, one sister was in jail, the other sister, when the Carabinieri had searched her home, they found a pizzino, the little piece of paper where the message and everything was written, in one of the legs of a couch, which filled in a lot of information. I think also, getting back to what Maria Rosa was saying about the young girl who inspired this book, in one of those messages from Messina Denaro, he said, "It is an honor to be investigated for mafia association. We have been persecuted first by Piedmont, thinking back to the unification of Italy, and then by Rome." So it takes us into the psychology, into the mind. And one of the major strengths of what Maria Rosa, to my mind, did was that she took that question seriously about roles covered by young girls, but the psychology, what is it that contributes to using violence to assert and affirm oneself, and looking at it through a sociological, also socioeconomic, cultural points of view, and also politics. The politics are there too. And so it's very complex, and readers then can put together what they think are the reasons. Ultimately, the main one is she grows up in that violent environment, and it's the only way that she can take, as Maria Rosa said. So, you know, but that's what I do.
That is fantastic. And so talking about the translation of a book, I don't know, maybe this is kind of just curiosity on and the opportunities and the challenges when a new project, when you choose a project. I didn't have a chance to look at the Italian text to see, for instance, if Maria Rosa had included any dialect expressions, or if it is all official Italian. Now, obviously, Maria Rosa being a living author, there can be dialogues, but sometimes you have texts where you can get answers, and you have to resolve that question on your own. So for those who, for the people that are not in the field of translation, give us a little bit about the process and the challenges and the opportunities.
Yeah, it's a beautiful text to translate, in the sense that when you do get a chance to look at the original, it's very lyrical. There's a poetry there, and it has been described as this long elegy. That was a challenge. It's a beauty, but it's a challenge because obviously English is very different. But I did try wherever possible to keep those kinds of cadences, if they were hard sounds in Italian, to find some type of an equivalent that could work in English, to keep a rhythm, to keep the lyrical, you know, so readers could somehow appreciate that. With the dialect, in one of my earlier books, I had translated quite a few texts by Sicilian authors. One was Giovanni Verga, who salt and peppers with a little bit of Sicilian dialect. Other texts have much more. So I had a grounding, but Maria Rosa had certain expressions that Eddie Giunta had said, these are more typical of Gela. I can't judge that. Maria Rosa could. But there's just a wonderful, wonderful one that comes to mind, which is My Life's Breath in English. Shatu meu. Maria Rosa, would you say that? Lo potresti dire in dialetto?
Anche il mio dialetto ha un accento strano ormai.
So even Maria Rosa's dialect, now that she's been away from Sicily, probably is
but sarebbe chatu meu.
Sarebbe chato e non chato. Io lo dico chato perché
dipende. Dipende dal luogo. Messina, Palermo, Gela is different.
Right. No, it's just beautiful. That's one that had stayed with me. I think another thing that all translators also confront is sometimes you find the perfect equivalent that you can do a couple of ways. There are 2 points in the book where the narrator says that refers to a booty, and we're talking also about the oregano, no? But in the first one, she has the booty that she puts on a table. I had chosen booty as the word. And one of the readers coming through for copy edits, because she puts the booty on the table, and she made this comment, I think this is a very inappropriate language choice for this narrator in the way that she speaks usually. And I looked at it, and then I understood she had taken booty as the popular American usage for somebody's rear end, as if she had sat on the table. And so I had to change the word to spoils.
Yes.
It was like, I never thought of that. And so these things that that come out, but I was very lucky. It's a dream working with Maria Rosa because she puts full faith in you. She doesn't kind of watch over your shoulder, say, well, how's it going? What are you doing? Where are you at? Nothing. But when you write saying, and I did it, I would have a list of dialect and say, can you please tell me what these mean in Italian? And she would answer right away. So just so pleasurable in taking on this project with her and with Eddie, because Eddie had a little hand in this. She put us in touch with Juliet Graham's of Soho. So this has been a project that's gone forward among we women, you know, Cosi, and yeah, very fulfilling.
And it's fascinating because, again, what happens with the great piece of, with amazing books that come out from Italian authors, unfortunately, these days, Italy's best kept secrets because of the language barrier. I do belong to a book club for Italian women, but because the makeup of the group is mix of Italian speakers and known, we always have to select the book that where translation is available. And I have already suggested for our 2023-2024 calendar. So as soon as I saw the translation, I sent an email to the book coordinator and said, can we please?
Oh, great.
Even because, again, having conversations about, it is a book that talks about the mafia, and it's usually a topic that is not easy to handle. We don't want to scare anyone by these conversations that, you can't sweep them under the carpet. I don't think Italy is the only country that has some sort of organized, happens everywhere. You can call it with different names, but it is a plague that affects. But seeing that also I like how Maria Rosa interpreted as a search for emancipation.
Yes.
The same way that other women did in other professions, because yes, it was her identity, but also, so to speak, a profession or a job. We're coming close to the end of our conversation. I wanted to check from both of you if there is something that you wanted to add or share. This, obviously, the one about the spoils and the booty is a cute story. If there is anything else that was part of your experience that might be worth sharing with our audience, that maybe was a challenge, an opportunity.
Oh, Maria Rosa, un'opportunità o una sfida di questo progetto? Qualcosa?
Sì.
Non ho
Se ci sono state altre storie interessanti appunto da condividere con il nostro pubblico, così come Robin ha già parlato appunto del bottino, che in inglese, la parola che aveva scelto inizialmente, poteva avere un secondo significato. In questo dialogo di come si dice, come interpreteresti, se c'è qualche storia, qualche altra storiella carina.
Ma carina non lo so, ma la cosa interessante per me è stata la reazione che ha avuto la ragazza a cui mi sono ispirata quando è uscito il libro. Cioè è stata una reazione violenta, nel senso che lei, che pure mi aveva accordato l'incontro, in realtà lei aveva commesso uno sbaglio verso la sua famiglia mafiosa di appartenenza, cioè aveva parlato, aveva detto di sì a qualcuno a cui non doveva dire di sì. Per cui quando io ho presentato il libro a Gela, lei si è presentata e mi ha, come dire, mi ha picchiato, cioè sono stata oggetto da parte sua di un vero e proprio atto di violenza, tanto più grave in quanto lei era fuori in libertà vigilata, quindi se io la denunciavo lei tornava in galera, ma io non l'ho denunciata perché mi ricordavo quello che lei mi aveva detto, e cioè che ogni volta che andava in galera era uno scatto di carriera in più nella professione mafiosa, per cui non lo... Però è stata una presentazione molto dura, molto in cui c'era metà sala di mafiosi locali, metà di persone che erano venute in mio sostegno, e quindi è stata una presentazione indimenticabile, indimenticabile. Io naturalmente avevo tutto il viso tumefatto perché lei è una professionista della violenza e mi aveva pestato ben bene, ma ho capito, perché poi dopo siamo andate a cena assieme, abbiamo parlato di nuovo molto e ho capito che lei doveva farlo perché doveva in qualche modo riscattarsi dallo sbaglio che aveva fatto parlando con me.
Interesting. So asking for an interesting story still to share with our audience. Maria Rosa shared actually the reaction of the girl when the book came out, and it was a very violent reaction. So even though she had agreed to meet with Maria Rosa, she actually made a mistake, so to speak, something wrong, a wrongdoing towards the family, the mafioso family that she belonged to, because she agreed, she gave a yes to someone with whom she was now supposed to talk. So when Maria Rosa presented a book in Gela, the girl who was in attendance actually beat pretty heavily Maria Rosa. And considering that she was also on probation, if Maria Rosa had denounced had reported the incident to the police, she would have gone back to jail. But Maria Rosa decided not to, because during the conversation that she had previously with the girl, she had learned that every time she went back to jail, it was like getting promoted in the ladder, in the mafioso ladder. And so obviously the presentation of the book in Gela was a very unforgettable night. Maria Rosa's face was all black and blue because the girl was a perfectionist. And but they did have interaction afterwards. They actually had dinner together. And Maria Rosa, so the girl had to react in that way. It was expected. It was pretty much trying to make up for the wrongdoing, or the fact that she had granted Maria Rosa an interview in the first place. Mi ha fatto, raccontando in questo episodio, avevo giusto un'altra domanda, se c'erano state ripercussioni dopo la pubblicazione del libro, che è uscito nel 94. So after this story, I had another question for Maria Rosa, if there were repercussions after the publication of the book, which actually came out in 1994. Ci sono stati anche altri episodi da altre persone esterne?
No, devo dire che diciamo il divieto era a Gela, sul territorio, nel territorio della sua famiglia mafiosa. Altrove no, non ci sono state reazioni. Ma quello che ho capito è prima ho detto che i giovani mafiosi sono diversi dai vecchi proprio perché amano farsi vedere, farsi ammirare in qualche modo. L'ho capito anche poi quella sera quando abbiamo parlato dopo l'aggressione, in cui lei è fra l'altro analfabeta, quindi non aveva letto il libro, ma gliel'avevano raccontato, la sua avvocata gliel'aveva raccontato. Allora lei si è lamentata con me del nome che avevo scelto per la protagonista, perché non le piaceva. Dice, io ho un nome così bello, anzi ce ne ho due, uno è quello di battaglia che usa all'interno del gruppo, del suo gruppo mafioso, e uno è il suo di nascita. Cioè io ho due nomi così belli e tu proprio Tina mi dovevi chiamare. Non le piaceva. Cioè questo per dire quanto il narcisismo. Tu parlavi di Matteo Messina Denaro. Beh, si è fatto Matteo Messina Denaro, che è quello che è, si è fatto un selfie con il suo medico.
Esatto.
Cosa che nel passato sarebbe stato impossibile, impensabile.
The original question was indeed if there were repercussions, other instances of repercussions after the book coming out, and it looked like the ban, so to speak, was just in the territory of Gela, where the family, the mafioso family of this girl operated. So it was kind of constrained or contained within the territory. So, and also what Maria Rosa understood, and as she had mentioned before, the great distinction between the old-fashioned, the old mafiosi and the new generation, how attention seekers, the new generation of mafiosi are. They want to be admired, they want to be immortalized, so to speak. And so that night that I had, that Maria Teresa, sorry, Maria Rosa, oh, my dear Francis, Maria Teresa, pardon, Maria Rosa had with the girl who can read, or the book she didn't even read, couldn't read the book. It was kind of told and recounted to her by her lawyer. As a sign of how narcissistic this girl was, she complained about the name of the female character, the protagonist, that Maria Rosa chose for her. She was complaining that she actually had two beautiful names, her own, and also her the name within the gang, il nome di battaglia. And another instance, indeed, was just recent when also the other Matteo was caught. Is like having the selfie, which, you know, in the old-fashioned world of would never occur. Actually, I remember still living in Italy. Every time there was someone that was arrested, it was always covered up by the jacket, and you couldn't really see their identity. One last thought. Anything else from either?
Well, I mean, I don't know that this is a funny story, but I would like readers to know that yes, this is a story about Tina and this young girl who is a mafia soldier. But one of the reasons for translating it and for reading it is, I think, the very artful way that Maria Rosa seamlessly intertwines also Tina being the story of Gela, Gela being the story of Tina, and both being the story of Sicilian and happiness. Readers will learn so much about Sicily in two time frames, 1970s, 1990s, and that's another thing, the orchestration of those two temporal frames, but also customs, family manners, the food scenes and descriptions are amazing, but beliefs. So it breaks all of those assumptions we might have about what the mafia is, what a young girl in the mafia is, but also what a mafia literature can be. So I would add that.
Yes, it's almost like a painting, an insight
Yes.
of realities, and that would not we would not have been exposed to unless we lived in Sicily in those times.
Right.
So unfortunately, our time together is up. Il Big Bang ha detto stop. It's time for us to say arrivederci e alla prossima. We want to thank you for tuning in to the program. If you have any questions or comments, or if you have any topics you would like us to address, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, please visit our website at www.istitutomonditaliano.org and click on the Radio Hour tab. You can also subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on YouTube or where you catch your favorite podcasts. I would like to thank our guest, Maria Rosa Cutrufelli, and Robin-Pickering-Iazzi. Our sponsor is Istituto Mondo Italiano, La Prima Espresso, and Alla Boara for the music. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
Ciao. Grazie.
Ciao. Thank you.
Ciao. Statemi bene.